Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're joined by Sophie Vecchione, a physio, trail runner, and specialist in running rehab with a focus on RED-S, stress fractures, and helping women build strong, resilient bodies. She's all about cutting through the noise on low energy availability, underfueling, and what female runners and athletes actually need to stay healthy and powerful. So now I've got her surname bang on because I did see you nod your head. Shall we get into it? Thanks, Sophie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yes, you absolutely nailed it.
Well done, Faye.
Thank you.
Extra points for that one. No, we're really excited to have you on today, Sophie, because I think so many people could learn a lot from you. Maybe you could just kind of give in a little short snippet, like a background of what you do and how you got into it, so everyone knows if they don't already follow you on socials.
So I'm a physiotherapist, so a musculoskeletal physiotherapist, with kind of a special interest in running and relative energy deficiency in sports. So it's quite a niche area, but it is fascinating and I love it. And unfortunately it's something that we're seeing a lot more cropping up a lot more now. People are kind of moving into the endurance space, but it's not something that only kind of comes into endurance athletes, but we can kind of get a bit more into that. But yeah, so that's kind of me. I used to hate running with a passion. I used to be a swimmer. When I was younger, I was a swimmer and netball player. And then basically was going after COVID. I was working in the NHS, needed to leave the NHS, and me and my husband got a van and renovated a van and decided to go
Oh,
traveling for a
cool.
few months. Yeah, it was, like that cliche lockdown, like
Yeah.
that was us.
So
I
it's
even
good
made
life there. Good
yeah.
life.
I even made an Instagram page for it, like all of the cliches. And yeah, and basically I've always loved hiking. Like I've hiked Everest Base Camp. Like I've always been like a big lover of the outdoors. It's just running was my issue. And yeah, so I basically got a coach, Lewis Robling, because I was like, I hate running and I would really like to run and I'm going traveling. And bless him, I think all of his other athletes were training for ultra marathons, and then that was just like me. And yeah, and that's where I just completely fell in love with trail running. And then kind of the rest is history. I categorically am not a road runner. I did one road half marathon, hated every moment of it. And then I
Yeah.
swore I'd never do another one again. So yeah, predominantly you'll find me trail running. That is like my happy place. And yeah, I actually started doing CrossFit this year, not quite high rocks, but just a very gorgeous like CrossFit gym near me that's super friendly. And I'm your classic pair, so I'm very bottom heavy. So for me, doing any of the like upper body stuff is a challenge, but I've really enjoyed kind of just moving in a different way. Yeah, so that's probably me.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting there, aren't you? You've got the running. Now you're starting to add a bit of strength and maybe some erg. So, high rocks might be on the horizon.
Not it might not be far.
Might not be far. But I agree with you about I mean, I know there's people have come from different backgrounds, but trail running versus road running. Like road running, I think is great. Like it makes you feel good when you hit paces or PBs, but like trail running, there's just nothing like it. Just going out on the trails, like hitting an awesome loop. Like you get lost in just where you are, don't you?
Oh, I've been lost many times.
I mean, like figuratively and yeah, I guess lost
Figuratively
as well.
and literally.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Emma can definitely, you can definitely relate on getting lost on the trails, can't you? Like, I've got the
Yeah, I
worst.
have zero like sense of direction and like I walk out of a bathroom and go the wrong way. So like I'm a bit useless in that area, but I do love it. I enjoy it. Trail running is definitely like good for the mind for sure.
Oh,
Um
100%.
and you said that you were in the NHS. Were you a physio for the
Yeah,
NHS to begin with?
yeah. Well, so I've actually had a bit of a weird journey to becoming a physio. So I actually was a physio assistant when I was 16 in a private practice, decided I hated it and didn't want to do physio. So then I did it. My undergrad was in psychology. Basically, I always wanted to do medicine. That was like my plan, but I didn't do it as an undergrad. So I did psychology, and then I did a master's in clinical neuroscience because I thought I wanted to go into neurology because I've always just found the brain fascinating. And then I basically my dissertation project was in dementia research, and my supervisor offered me a job as a research assistant. So I basically did research in dementia for 3 years, kind of putting off doing medicine because I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to like commit to 5 years of training. Um,
Yeah.
and then and then I basically spent time with the neurophysios, and I was like, actually, this is much more me. Like, these people have been given this kind of horrible diagnosis, but actually with physio, you're trying to improve their quality of life. So I was like, I'm going to retrain as a physio. So it was like a full circle moment.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the whole time was like, I'm never going to do MSK. As you can tell with me, I say lots of like no's, and then I end up going down that path. And then
MSK, sorry, what's that?
musculoskeletal physio. So kind of
Musculoskeletal,
like,
okay.
yeah, so your classic,
Like your
like, I've got
standard
an
physio.
injury. Exactly. Yeah.
How we
Um,
would know a physio, I guess, because
how, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, what you'd attribute a physio to being, basically. And then, yeah, so I worked in the NHS, and then I actually got offered a position doing my senior rotations in musculoskeletal physio, but in Oxford, where I live, that involves, we're a major trauma centre. So one of my rotations was in major trauma, which I loved. And I was like, yep, MSK is for me. But the NHS is not. So
So yeah, fair.
after COVID, I was like, I need to leave. And then I started working as a private physio, and then just this whole cascade of events that happened that have kind of got me to where I am today, which is kind of looking back on pretty wild, but also, yeah, I feel very fortunate to kind of be on the career path that I'm on because I genuinely love it.
Yeah. And how so from leaving the NHS, going into like private practice, obviously you started your running journey and with Lewis and started to get probably more on the trails. How did the running physio, red S, stress fracture like niche come about for you? How did the two merge?
So, so I don't know if you guys know Lewis Robling, but he did so one year he was aiming to do all of the Ultra X 250 ultras within a year to raise money for Big Moose charity. So he was my coach at that point, and the final one in Mexico got cancelled. And he was supposed to be doing it with Renee McGregor, and it got cancelled. So the two of them were like, "Well, let's just make our own one." And so Lou basically was like, "We need a physio. Would you be happy to come and physio for it?" Which I was like, "Yeah." um, so I did that. There was an osteopath there as well. So it was kind of the two of us. And then that's where I met Renee. And then, yeah, and then just loved working in the running, like in the ultra running space, because I was like, these people are crazy. It was like, it was so, I don't know if you've seen Why We Run Now. Why We Run Now is a very polished version of Why We Run One, which was like, we basically didn't have an indoor space. It was in November, like it was freezing cold. We were all covered in mud, like in this like hut. It was just so like the guys were camping, it flooded, like, do you know what I mean? It was just so rogue, but it was this just unbelievable experience where I don't think I've ever had that sense of connection with a group of people so quickly and so like profoundly. And then yeah, Renee and I just really connected, and there was lots of things there, like the injuries that were cropping up, and I was like, these are like really serious injuries. Like, so then I just got an interest in that, and then we started speaking to her, and I started learning about Reds, and then we just carried on connecting, and then she asked me to join her team. So I'm Renee McGregor's team physio, which is just amazing. So I've kind of been working with Reds athletes specifically since, so it'll be 2 years in February. So that's
Oh,
kind of how it
yeah.
all, yeah. And then
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
I
no.
loved it. So yeah.
It's really interesting. And I think, like you say, the connection I think that running, and especially like ultra running and the trails, brings is really special. Like I do think it's kind of a little bubble of its own of people doing like crazy things. But you mentioned like you kind of were seeing I guess some of the same or the similar injuries cropping up that are like really serious. Do you mind talking a little bit about like maybe some of the things that appear potentially in runners and what may lead to those? And like, I mean, I'll let you just kind of go and delve into that area.
That whole land, yeah.
Yeah, such an open-ended question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. It's a really good question. I guess one of the things that I noticed at Why We Run was this kind of like exercise dependency type link, because like, you know, with playing team sport, with netball, like swimming, like I loved swimming, but it wasn't like I was happy if I could miss a session. I wasn't like I have to go and swim. And team sport is this, you know, you go for that sense of connection, whereas, you know, running a lot of the time you're you know, on your own. And what I was noticing a lot was, yeah, this kind of like a basically exercise addiction type thing. And then, you know, with that then comes, I was starting seeing a lot of stress fractures. And I guess they're kind of like, that's like the serious end of it, you know, like with running, it's the same with high rocks. You get the same injuries, you get tendon injuries, you twist your ankle, like that, like all of those things apply. But it was just these more serious things that I was noticing, and I was like, why is this happening? I'm one of those people that like I have to understand stuff. Like I really don't like not having like a good understanding of things. So basically I just kind of jumped into it. And yeah, and I think that's I guess, yeah, like with, as you were saying, even with like road running, you get that buzz. You get that buzz when you're hitting paces, or like me, I get a buzz when I'm out in a mountain and I'm like, whoa, like look at the view. But I was like, what is it that takes people from just having that buzz and that sense of like, oh, you know, I love exercising, I love how it makes me feel, it's an important part of my life, to kind of the opposite end where it's like, I cannot live without exercise, and if exercise is taken away from me, it really affects my mental health and things like that. And I just became a bit stubborn and was like, well, I want to help people with that. But unfortunately, what we are starting to see a lot of, and I don't know if you guys see it, but on social media, it seems like everyone's got stress fractures at the moment. And one of the biggest things with stress fractures is their relationship with RED-S. So I guess for people that don't know what RED-S is, or I mean, I always call it RED-S. So it stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sports. I'm sure Rini spoke about it when she was on with you guys, but it's basically this mismatch between not having enough energy to meet the demands of like your normal life and then your training. But I think a lot of the time what I see on social media, because it's kind of becoming this hot topic, is like people focus on the fueling element of it. So it's like you're under fueling. It is underpinned by something called low energy availability, so not having enough energy for everything. But it's also one of the biggest things about RED-S is under recovery. So it's kind of the two things. And it was yeah, putting those together, and what we're tending to see is essentially when you're overtraining, under fueling and under recovering, your body doesn't have the energy for your normal physiological functions to kind of carry on as normal. And essentially one of the things that gets affected is your bone remodeling process. So your bones essentially aren't able to heal from the training that you're doing, and then they become weaker over time, and then ultimately they can lead to a stress fracture. So and they're big injuries, like they're, you know, you're out of running for a long time because it's a fracture. But also if REDS is involved, you know, it also delays your healing process. So, you know, I have athletes that are out of running for over a year from recovery from a stress fracture. And you know, there's some stress fractures you that have got a really low kind of like healing rate, and then you end up requiring surgery and things like that. So it's my biggest thing that I'm passionate about is trying to raise awareness, not only about REDS, but how to be like a healthy athlete, because I think that's so important that we get, you know, everyone gets caught up with this move more. I did a post on it the other day, and it's like, you know, the government guidelines being like everyone should move every day and it's really important to move, and it is, but actually if you're an active individual, it's really important to rest. And so I kind of feel like that's my, obviously being a physio and treating people with injuries and things like that, but my passion is educating runners to be healthy and be able to achieve all these awesome goals. Like, I'm so up for people doing crazy challenges. I think it's awesome. I love seeing what the human body can do, but it's doing it in a healthy way, I think that's probably a bit of a tangent off from your original question, but yeah.
No, that's like perfect. I guess maybe also the psychology of it, like you say, and like I think with social media and people potentially have a rest day and feel guilty, and I mean we're in Dubai at the moment, and like I think everyone's done their like sessions by like 7 a.m. Like if you wake up at like 6:30, you're like, oh God, that I'm lazy. Like I've not gone out and like seen the sunrise and done my run and been to the gym and like got a coffee. And it's like you kind of start to think, oh, I need to be doing that, or oh, I'm not like training enough, or I'm not doing enough. So the psychology must be like, yeah, quite hard to put those thoughts to the back of your mind. And then if people, I guess it's upping the volume, is it? Like, is that what kind of like causes it, or?
Yeah, it can be volume or intensity increases. So we tend to see it, well, especially if we just talk more specifically about stress fractures, is because of kind of how bone remodeling works, we normally see it, people get stress fractures kind of up to about 6 weeks after a big spike in something. So it might be that you've suddenly gone to Dubai and you're like exercising twice a day when you're not used to doing that. And then, without the recovery and the fueling, and then you might see this injury coming up 6 weeks later. So it can be that, but also it can just be life. So, for example, you might be training the exact same as you always train, but you have a grievance in the family, or you have your work suddenly gets really stressful and you're just feeling really stressed, or you have relationship problems, or anything like that then is putting additional stress on your body, that also can affect your hormones and how they function, and can lead to this kind of imbalance, which I think often people don't realize is, I'm sure for all of us, like, us three here and a lot of people listening, like, exercises are release. And I think athletes find it really hard when I'm like, kind of like, you need to find another release sometimes. Like, it's really important to have that balance, because take me for example. I had a hernia that came out of nowhere, and I had surgery 6 weeks ago, and running is such a big part of my life. I love it. It's my, I go out for a run with my best friend. Like, we do a long run most weekends, and I haven't been able to have exercise, but it's frustrating, but it's not infected, it's not really affected my mental health. And I think that's what can be quite challenging, is that if I carried on running and pushing it whilst I was recovering from a surgery, like, that could then push me into reds, or so it's yes, the training side of things is really, really important, but it's also that kind of other side of it, where I heard a quote which I just love, and it's basically your brain doesn't know the difference between mental stress and physical stress. It just knows stress. So a lot of this, especially when it comes to reds, happens because of stress impacting the body, be it physical, be it mental, be it a bit of both. So yes, a lot of the time the classic is someone's done a bit too much, that their body's not used to, and they haven't quite realized that they're not fueling enough or recovering enough for that increase, or they've just put their bones under, or their muscles under excessive stress that's above their current capacity. That's kind of the classic. But often with individuals with reds, we dive deeper into it, and there's so much other stuff going on in the background that they're dealing with. So it's always kind of thinking about you as a whole, I would say, is really important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also a lot of people, I mean, I think you find a lot of athletes now as well, influencers, like, people have a lot of stress on them, or like a lot of pressure on them outside of just performing. Probably because social media has come into things, so they're expected to do a lot of social media, a lot with brands. And then with your everyday athletes, you've got everyone trying to make a living, like raise a family, or look after their pets, or social and personal pressures that come alongside everything else. So looking at, I think I was watching something this morning, they were saying like, don't ever look at we always look at our training in isolation, like as in, oh well, I only did one run yesterday, but you might have done one run, moved house, gone and seen your mum who's ill in hospital and done something else, but you just literally looked at it and went, oh, I only did a run yesterday, and you usually train twice a day. And sometimes it's trying to get your head around all that, everything as a whole, rather than just the one thing that you, yeah, just isolating your training and looking at your training and going, oh, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
um
No, you do. You have to, like, I always say, like when I speak to, athletes, training for ultra marathons or marathons or, even events, and I'm like, I firmly believe that everyone could do a marathon or an ultra. Like I genuinely believe
Agreed.
everyone can do it, but I don't think everyone can do it at any point in their life. Like there's going to be times in your life where it's not a good idea. Like I did my first ultra last year, absolutely loved it, was 100% going to do another one this year. And I haven't, because my life has just been mental. And I was like, if I add that additional load of training for an ultra, like I'm just going to make myself ill. So it's like, I know I can do an ultra, but that doesn't mean that I should do one all the time, because and I think that's what's really important. It's like with social media at the moment, there's this you see people running marathons and ultras like multiple times a year, and I almost think it's really sad, because it's almost like downplaying how awesome those achievements are. I guess the same with high rocks events, like if you're doing them constantly, like is it kind of taking away from how awesome of an achievement it is to actually do it, like to do a training block, to have your event that you're like, either it goes really well or it doesn't quite go well, but it's still that like sense of accomplishment. But if you're kind of straight out into the next one, it's like, well, it kind of takes it away from it. And I think it I think we've got to this place, especially with kind of like the endurance running space, where because everyone seems to be doing it, I think people have forgotten how big they are. Like running a marathon is huge. Like
Yeah.
it's such an achievement. It has such a profound impact on your body, on like all of your physiological processes. Like you need the time to recover afterwards, but it's like kind of, I think people have almost forgotten that it's a big not everyone, but you know what I mean? It's almost, I think people have forgotten that it's a big deal, and it's like I think it was like Berlin Marathon this year. It was ridiculously hot. It was like 34 degrees or something. And I just saw everyone posting like, "Oh, I didn't get a PB." And I was like, "You just did a marathon. Like, and you're not going to get a PB every time. Like that's not normal. Like it is not normal to, like with my swimming, like gosh, I would work my butt off for months and months. I was a sprint swimmer, so I very rarely got PBs, because I was swimming for 30 something seconds. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not normal to get these PBs, especially, for you to get a PB over a marathon distance, clocking off, say, 15 seconds a kilometer is humongous. So I think it's kind of, that's one of the big reasons why we're getting this big rise in reds and stress fractures is I think social media is playing a huge role in it, because individuals are signing up to lots of stuff, not resting adequately between things, and then that's when their body's like, oh my gosh, like, but it's basically your body is just putting on the brakes, and it's like, we need a timeout, so you're not doing it, so I'm gonna do it for you, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point, and I do think, yeah, like you say, it's incredible. Ultras, marathons, high rocks, like every event you do to put in it's not just the event, it's the training block, like beforehand as well. It's like weeks, months of effort and training, and then a big output, and it's huge, whatever it is, like the challenge for you. And what about from like a physio standpoint? I guess in my head, people usually go to a physio when they're injured. um, is that the wrong thing to do? Like, should you go and see a physio all the time? Or what would your advice be for, I guess, if you are an athlete that is training a lot for certain goals, like how to kind of manage your body from that point?
Yeah, so I guess like kind of prehab strength and conditioning is definitely a massive thing. So it's not that everyone needs to see physios constantly, and most of the time, yeah, like well, I suppose it's slightly different with me now because yes, I see a lot of people, they come to me, they've got like I've got this new injury, blah blah blah, and then we kind of go from there. I also now do get people that come to me without an injury but have noticed signs of red, so then I'm kind of working with them from that respect. But I also do have athletes that I've known and worked with for a long time who will just have a catch up every so often, which is also something, if you know that is financially viable for you, is not a bad thing. I think if you're someone as well who maybe you're not injured at the moment, but you know that you're like, I always get IT band issues. So you're like one of those people. It's like, it's always my IT band. Um, then that is quite helpful seeing a physio, like to try and figure out why that's happening, yeah, and stop it so you don't then, because there's you know a lot of the time it might just be a slight biomechanical thing. I'm really anti like you've probably seen all the physios like how to run with perfect form. Like perfect form does not exist. But I'm not saying like when I say biomechanical issues, I'm not suddenly going to be like, right, this is how you should walk and this is how you should do this. But often, especially in like in stuff like high rocks where you're doing like high intensity weights, and you know, for example, say your knee always falls in on the right, that is, you know, maybe going to put your IT band under more load. So there's like little tweaks we can make in kind of your strengthening program to almost retrain your body to work in a way that isn't going to put it under load. So there's little tweaks, but it completely depends on you as a person. And obviously private physio is not a cheap thing, but I always say to people that you know, athletes wouldn't bat an eyelid buying a new pair of shoes or a new outfit or things like that. And I just think if you're going to do these kind of extreme sports like high rocks, you know, like CrossFit, like ultra running, you do have to put a almost like a pot aside to care for yourself.
Yeah.
Because like often people will come and they end up spending more money because then they're really injured, and it's, you know, it takes, especially when it comes to stress fractures, like I said, if you imagine your recovery is a year, that's a year of, you know, rehab that you're going to need. Whereas, you know, if we kind of address the issues preemptively before they become problems, it, you know, so there you go, I'm saving you money.
Yeah, there you go. Long term. Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy one less pair of shoes and get a few physio sessions, or
Yeah.
yeah, get some good rehab. Also, you said you talk a lot about stress fractures and like and red S or reds. Is there any other? I mean, I know like stress fractures, but is there any other like tendinopathy or like inflammation? Is that all linked as well? Any other injuries that you see linked to maybe low energy availability?
Yeah, basically
Is it similar?
anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it can be anything that
It can,
could be
it can,
linked.
yeah. So like I said, if we kind of go back to what's happening in reds is, so essentially, like I said, you're in a situation where there's not enough energy for your body to function. So if you imagine, so carbohydrate is your kind of main energy source. Obviously we use fats, but glycogen is our fast acting energy source. Um, and often people think of carbohydrate as what you need for movement, but like every cellular function uses carbohydrate, like uses glucose, essentially glycogen. um so if you're exercising a lot, going back to caveman days, like your body will prioritize movement above everything else. So you know, cavemen didn't eat for a week and then had to be able to chase down like a, I don't know what they had, a dinosaur back in the
Yeah.
day.
Woolly mammoth.
Woolly
Yeah.
mammoth. I was going to say a deer, but I was like, I'm pretty sure there weren't deers then. Or maybe there were. I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
Maybe a deer with like 5 horns. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, um, but they, do you know what I mean? So like your body will always put movement above everything else. And what it does is literally puts it above everything, like brain health, gut health, you know, cardiac health, reproductive health. Because basically it's like, well, I've not got enough energy. So what do I think is most important? Right, movement's the most important, and then everything else falls underneath. And then how your body marries it out is different from person to person. So one of the biggest things that females will notice is well, females not on the or on the hormonal contraception will notice changes to their menstrual cycle, and it's basically because your body's like, well, when we don't have the energy to have a baby right now, so we're just going to turn that off for the time being. But one of the big ones is your recovery processes. So your body's like, it literally physically doesn't have the energy to recover. So what we tend to see in reds is this increase in injuries, be it bone, be it tendinopathies. But we tend to see the classic sign is like, I get runners who are like, I just keep getting, injury after injury after injury, and I just don't feel like I'm recovering, and I don't feel like I'm getting any better. Like that's kind of like classic, because like when you're exercising a lot, you're going to get injuries. Like it's unavoidable. Even if you come to see me every week for the rest of your life, stuff happens. But it's that, oh yeah, like I just, my tendons I've had Achilles issues, and now my hip's bad, and now I've got like a shoulder problem. It's that like kind of constant not quite getting better. And that's, yeah, like I said, it's just because your body's not able to recover.
Mm. Is there
And,
certain... Oh no.
go on, go on.
I was going to say, is there certain ages or like stages of your life that this is more like likely, or I don't know, like as in maybe when you've just kind of hit your early 20s, or when you're getting a bit older and you're, I don't know, pre-menopause, or is there like certain bits where it's like this might be more likely in this stage of your life?
Yeah, massively. So I guess two of the big stages would be kind of postpartum, because your hormones are already all over the place. So when you have a baby, it's something like your estrogen levels drop by. I I was reading it the other day. I can't remember what the figure is, but it's like
Sorry,
it's
I put you on the
astron.
spot.
No, it's I my brain, end of the year, I'm like, what was it? It was something like 1,000%. I can't remember, but it basically, as soon as you have a baby, your estrogen level just like drops off the face of the earth, essentially. So it's kind of like you're in perimenopause. And estrogen, we have estrogen receptors everywhere, like in our brains, like everywhere. So it's not just, it's called a sex hormone, but it's not just a sex hormone. It's not just a reproductive hormone. It impacts everything. So reduction in estrogen increases risks of things like stress fractures. So yes, when you're postmenopausal, sorry, when you're postpartum, it's really, really important to be really careful with your exercise, especially when you're breastfeeding, because that makes sure estrogen levels stay low. So yeah, low energy availability. Also, you're not sleeping. You've got additional. We talked about that stress earlier. You've got all that additional stress. So yeah, injuries are really, really like your risk of injury is really high if you're an active woman postpartum. So you just have to, and that's not to say you cannot exercise. You can. You just have to be aware of what's going on, and maybe if you've had a night where you've been up all night and you've not slept and you're exhausted, maybe you don't go for a run that day. Maybe you just go for a walk and get some fresh air and give yourself some TLC. And then the other one is, yeah, kind of peri and post menopause again, because your hormones are all over the place. I guess in your early years, it's kind of the opposite end of like, it's not that you're at higher risk then of injury, but basically you basically make your like bone health, and you lay down those good bone foundations kind of up to your mid 20s. So it's really important in that period that you have a menstrual cycle, because if you don't have a menstrual cycle, it's a sign that your estrogen level, or what your hormonal levels, specifically your estrogen, is very low. So that bone remodeling process is affected by that. So often, which is really sad, what we're seeing at the moment, quite a lot of, and in Reni's team, we work with a lot of individuals who've had history of disordered eating, where they, didn't have a cycle throughout those years, and they're now osteoporotic or osteopenic, and it's just because they didn't put down that good bone. So it's not that in those early years you're at a greater risk of injury then, but if you overtrain then, it can have a really substantial effect on your physical health like later in life. So it does, yeah. So it basically affects, yes, everyone, but there's different stages in your life where kind of different things are kind of affected.
Yeah. And I think I think back to me when I was left school, went to uni, I was training like quite a lot, but also I was fending for myself for the first time and kind of just grabbing some pasta with some cheese or like grabbing like a bag of crisps or we'd go and get, you'd finish whatever the training is and then everyone would go out and you'd be like, oh, I haven't had time to eat. I feel like in those circumstances it's like people I didn't even think about it. And
Yeah.
it's just like life kind of takes over and you're not used to doing it. And I guess like two questions. Like one, if you're a young girl now or guy, because red S affects guys as well, like
Yeah.
leaving home at uni, living by themselves for the first time, like any like tips and advice to help them. And
Yeah.
secondly, maybe for parents that have got young like kids athletes that are like coming up through like high rocks or running or
Mm.
trail running, is there any advice to like parents to try and help pass on to try and avoid that at that stage of the foundations and the habits that you could build to then take into later life without getting into that situation? Because I feel like it's a time in life when you're let loose on your own. um I mean, it
Literally
probably
let
helps with
loose.
Deliveroo and yeah, probably helps with Deliveroo and stuff like that now, but I just remember being really bad, or just like me and my housemates would just live off cereal. We'd just be like, oh, I'll just have cereal. Like, it was just
Yeah.
lack of, and we went to one of the best sports universities with the best coaches and the best but like, my one of my flatmates was a GB. She was in like the Olympics and everything, and we were all just sitting there smashing Special K because someone said, have a couple of bowls of Special K and you get what you need. Like, but I think it's
Yeah. No, and reds is there's two forms of reds. There's intentional and unintentional, and a lot of people fall
hmm
into that unintentional because I think a lot of people don't realize, like we think of exercise as this healthy thing to do, and you just don't realize often how, unless you work with a dietitian or a nutritionist, like you just
yeah.
don't realize how much food and or if you don't work with a physio recovery you need. So I would say kind of top tips for anyone, but especially in the, for anyone basically, but
Mm.
applies to your question, is having a rest day and like having one proper rest day. Like I'm really strict with, I hate the term active recovery because it is fundamentally not recovery. Like easy runs and easy cross training has its place within a training block,
Yeah.
but it's not recovery. And I just would say make sure there is one day of your week where you are not doing any exercise, but you're also not like, it's not a day where as a student you're on placement and you're doing 25,000 steps and you're going out drinking. Like that's still not a rest day. So it's
Dancing, dancing
yeah,
all
yeah,
night.
exactly. Like I feel like kids don't drink as much anymore as maybe we used
No,
to
I
when we were at
know.
uni. But it's being okay with rest. Like I call it adaptation days, because I think a lot of people don't realize that when you exercise, that's not when you're making adaptation. Like you exercise and you cause damage fundamentally. You damage your bones, damage your muscles, you put your heart under strain, and then you recover and your body heals. And then that's how you make those adaptations, you get stronger. So if you're not having a rest day, this is why I was going back to Red's not always being about like the nutrition is really important, but it's also that under recovery, because if you're just not recovering, your body's not going to be able to keep up, and then that's when it's going to have issues. So yes, like just when you're at uni or at any point in life, having one day that is doing nothing and being okay with that and knowing that that's an important part of being an athlete, because I think nowadays most people a lot of people you class as athletes, you're athletes with full-time jobs. So it's like it's making sure that you're okay with that. And then the other thing would just be like your food timing. So yeah, when you're at uni, you don't have the funds to be able to, or maybe the skills to be able to cook yourself kind of well balanced food. But one of the team that one of the things that Rini and the team always talk a lot about is basically your food timing. So never training fasted is one of the biggest ones. So not being like, oh, well, I'm going to go out at 5 a.m. and do my workout and then I'll come back and have breakfast later. Like it's really important not to do that from a, again, it just basically when you wake up, your cortisol levels are really high, and if you train, they get even higher. If you eat, that it lowers them down. So it's important to kind of help balance out those the cortisol, because kind of chronically high cortisol can cause havoc basically. So yeah, never training fasted, and also making sure that you kind of refuel quite quickly afterwards. So there's this like 30 to 60 minute window like after you finish where your body takes up glycogen a lot higher than it would normally, and so it's kind of like monetizing on that time, like, okay, my body's ready to refuel at this point. So often what they'll say is, within 30 minutes have something like carby. Chocolate milk is like the perfect balance of carb and protein. So I often say, like, just, have a chocolate milk. Like as soon as you get home, have a chocolate milk. Because often people feel a bit sick when they finish exercising. So it's like, just get something in, have your shower, and then come back and have your meal. So yeah, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend loads of money on like expensive supplements and things like that. But I think getting the timing of your carbohydrate is so important, and not excluding carbohydrate, because, carbohydrate, bless it, has got demonized as being this horrible thing that makes you fat. And it is just complete rubbish. And it's so important if you're an active individual. So yeah, basically like having a rest day, and just timing your food well around your training is probably the like two fundamental things to get right. Yeah.
That's cool. I think like calling it an adaptation day as well instead of a rest day. I think just like that just really resonated with me. I think active individuals that want to always be achieving, and you say to them you need a rest day, the connotations of that are like, oh well, I'm going to be lazy and do nothing. Whereas if you say an adaptation day, it like changes it to like, oh yeah, well my body needs that time to adapt because I've been working so hard. It's like maybe sometimes we just need to change the narrative as like people that are coaches or athletes around what that day is, like rather than calling it a rest day and adaptation day, is like maybe would help people understand why that day is so important.
Yeah,
and
I
then
find it very useful with that. They
yeah
just like, it's just changing the narrative, isn't it?
yeah,
Like,
because then that's why people like an active recovery day, because they feel like, well, they're still achieving something. I don't, and whereas if it's, I just think it's all like kind of, when you think about it, you're like, oh, a rest day, that just means I mean, I love a rest day. But and then the other question I was going to ask was, you talk about recovery and how important it is, and not just fueling, but would you recommend anything else? Like, we see the compression boots, like hot and cold therapy, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything else you would suggest apart from your adaptation day?
no. uh, no.
Opened a can of worms to your face.
I know. Well, it's interesting though, because like some
Uh,
people, if you don't have to do it, people might not feel like they have to spend their money on it. Or what about mobility? Like, would you do any light mobility or?
Um, again, like, no. So I guess mobility over stretching. So mobility is important. Like, yeah. So say you're, which is why people like that kind of active recovery, because they wake up and they feel stiff, and it makes them feel a bit better if they move. So yeah, doing some mobility is nice, just to prevent that kind of that sensation of muscular tightness or stiffness. Oh, the recovery market at the moment is just so saturated with like just so much stuff. And honestly, most of it doesn't make a lot of a difference. There's my future collabs going down the drain. No, that like some of them, like stuff like the compression boots, like, yes, we know that compression can be beneficial, but actually, like, we actually now know. So I don't know, have you ever heard like RICE? That like
Yeah,
rest, ice,
rest, ice,
compression,
compression,
elevation. Yeah. So we actually now know that when you're training a lot, and or even if you have an acute injury, we now actually avoid anything that's anti-inflammatory. So ice, stay away from it to start with, because your body's like inflammatory process is how we heal, and it's the same with making adaptations post training. And actually we're going away from ice baths because we actually know that it stunts recovery and adaptation. Yeah, so like the compression boots, yes, there we know that compression can be beneficial, but you know, in terms of like margins of improvement versus just lying on the sofa with your legs elevated and chilling out. I wouldn't say to people that they need to worry about spending a lot of money on it. Like if you have the finances and you want to, fine. I don't own any of that stuff like at all because it doesn't make enough of a difference that I would spend my money on it. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere, going to Chamonix.
Yeah, I mean,
And
with you
running up a
there.
mountain.
Yeah. It's good to know though, because you do
that.
see a lot of people in the boots. You see a lot of people that do, have access to, say, like sauna and ice baths, and it's not viable for everybody. And a lot
Yeah.
of the influencers and athletes you see using all this tech, most of them are having it gifted or have it, some way to get it a little bit cheaper. So if you're your average athlete and you're thinking, oh, that's what I need to do, it is good to understand whether it actually is like, it's a nice to have if you've got the option to do it. And maybe mentally it helps some people, especially with like the cold therapy, it helps people mentally. But it's not be all and end all that you need to do that to get the best adaptation to be able to get better at training. It's actually just going back to basics and maybe just having an adaptation there.
It is literally that. I always say to people, like, if you're not getting the fundamentals right, no amount of theragunning or foam rolling or compressioning is going to save you from getting injured. Like, if you've absolutely nailed the fundamentals and then you're like, I mean, theraguns are just completely pointless in my opinion. But anyway, people enjoy them. But yeah, like if you've nailed the fundamentals and then you want to spend the money on the extras because they make you feel good, like the placebo effect is also a really big thing. Like if it may, like I have people that absolutely swear by stuff, and I'm like, by all means, I'm never going to tell you to stop using it if it works for you. But yeah, I would say don't worry yourselves about that. Just eat. Was it like eat, sleep, rave, repeat, but like eat, sleep, recover, repeat, like just literally just like, or rest maybe. They are literally, I should get that as a t-shirt. But they are literally, yeah, that is all you need to recover is time off, good fueling, and yeah, getting your decent sleep, which I am terrible for at the moment because my brain is just working at a million miles an hour. But it's stuff like that. It's like acknowledging that you're not sleeping great, and yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I am conscious that I don't want to keep you too long because you have a very busy day ahead. But I'm gonna quickly ask one more thing before the last question to round off, if that's okay. And it can be like quite a quick answer because it's not really to do with physio or reds, but it was more because you said about psychology, and I was just wondering like how much of an effect you think like the mental side and like the brain has in like a race on race day and when you're like pushing your body, and if you think that's what kind of gives people potentially an edge to like go out and win competitions and perform well.
Yeah, oh gosh, massively. Like sports psychology is such a, I guess, like huge growing area of kind of like the everyday athlete. Because I think before people always put sports like you would only see a sports psychologist if you were like an elite athlete, whereas now, I think everyone could benefit from it. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things from like personal experience, I found that like so when I was younger and competing, was fortunate to do both to quite a high level. And so much would come down, do you know what I mean? Like you'd put so much pressure on yourself. And if you didn't perform well, then you'd have that, that sense of, oh, like I failed or whatever. And honestly, now I think because I had so many years of being like uber competitive that now I genuinely don't care in the do you know what I mean? I sign up for like trail races because I just love them and it's a fun day out and it's a challenge, but like I really could not care less what my time was or like, and I think for me that's really changed how I do because I don't know. I think that was like when I did that road half, I hated it because I was constantly I'd come up with this like stupid time that I decided I was going to get, despite the fact I've never done any road stuff before. And I was constantly looking at my watch like, oh, I'm running too slow. And then my whole head went down and I just, do you know what I mean? It was just a big
mess
of a day. And whereas the difference now is like, I think my mentality around exercise has completely changed. And like I do speak about it quite a lot, I suppose, is basically my dad has lots of health conditions. He's got a really rare autoimmune disease, so he's had two liver transplants, not through alcohol, just from his body basically hating his liver. And he's got all these other things that have come as a result of it. And he was so, he's run the London Marathon, like he would have been like a mammal. He would have done ultras with
Yeah.
me. And but he can't like he basically can't really exercise now. And I think for me it's like remembering like your privilege. I think sometimes people forget like how lucky we are to be able to move. And like that's why I mean, like I love trail running, because I'll be like, out in Wales and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm out in the torrential rain and mud and I get to do this. And I think that's a really important thing for people to remember, that like when you're out doing a marathon, like it may not be going well that day, but like you get to do that. Like you're able to run a marathon, like high rocks, like you're able to train and go to a gym and move your body in like a ridiculous way. Like high rocks is I watch people do it. I'm like, that looks awful. It looks so hard. But I think just shifting that mentality away from, you know, remembering in sport anything can happen. Like you might have had a bad night's sleep and that might affect how you do the next day. And yes, it's disappointing when you train hard for something, but just I think, yeah, like just keeping that kind of positive, you still get to do it, you're still there, you're still in a privileged position to be able to move. And for me that's really helped with I just like, yeah, don't get me wrong, like I still love exercise, it's still really important. Like I said earlier, like this period where I've not been able to train how I like is, if anything, it's more just I'm like frustrated by it, but it's not like I'm just like, oh come on body, like get on with it, like let's be ready now. But it's not, I think, whereas before, like a couple of years ago, I think if this had happened, I would have struggled a lot more with it. So yeah, I think just like well, being positive is always going to be better, isn't it? But and I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but I think just, yeah, remembering that is a really important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Like totally agree and totally resonate with that. Like absolutely. So would that be your message to your younger self, if you could tell her something, or the next generation of girls coming up, would it be to remember the privilege of getting to do it, or would you have anything else to say?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think, yeah, like there's just more to life than getting PBs. Because that would
Yeah.
apply, that it would apply to me as my, again, I was so fixated on, winnings in swimming and stuff. And there really is more to life than getting PBs. And there is, I don't know, so much adventure to be have in the running space. And like with high rocks, I think it's amazing that you can, some people get the opportunity to go to high rocks in different countries. Like I saw a load of guys with like
Yeah.
high rocks Warsaw and high rock, like the other day after I was on the train home after the London one. Um, and I think it's that, like, just, yeah, there's more to life than PBs. Like, just enjoy movement, like, look after you. Like, I love the kind of phrase, like, you only have one body, like, treat it like it's your home, and don't use exercise as like, it doesn't have to be punishment. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I literally run for me now and run for adventure. Like, I was talking to some guys the other day who were like, what races have you got on next year? And I've got one in January that I'm still, on the edge of whether I should do because of my recovery. And if I don't do it, like, yeah, it'll be disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. But I was saying like next year, I just want to have a year of like adventure. Like I love just doing a running weekend, and it doesn't have to be a race, just like having a weekend with my friends. So yeah, I think it's important to have that balance between, yes, having goals is important, but also just like loving your sport because of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Like remembering why
absolutely.
you do it as well sometimes, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like when you get out with friends and you do it, I don't know, maybe even whether it is a run or a high rocks, or like going to a different city and just enjoying the whole weekend, and the race is just a part of it rather than putting everything into that. And I guess it comes back to like full circle about what you said at the beginning, is like, what are you outside of the sport? If you got injured, like you need something else. You can't just like fixate on that, that one race or that sport, or you have to do that. If you've got something else you know, to fall back on, or, you know, a good group of friends, or you have another hobby or interest, it'll help you get through the tough times. And yeah, everything doesn't just come down to running around in circles or running on a road
Yeah.
or running up a mountain. But it is hard when you get injured. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
no, I agree. I think it's amazing. Do it while you can. That's what we say.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. If anyone has been listening and it's kind of like resonated with some of the things that you've said, or maybe thinks like they would like a little bit more information or advice potentially about REDS or injury physio, like how can people find you, reach out, like where are you based, all that sort of information?
So I have a clinic in Oxford. So I'm based in Oxford. I have a clinic in Oxford, which is the Bosworth Clinic. I also now have started I've started a REDS clinic, physio clinic in the Running Room, which is in East London. But I do work with Reenie McGregor's team virtually, and individuals can book with me virtually as well through my social media. So my Instagram is at runfree-rehab.
Okay.
So yeah,
Perfect.
always open. Drop me a message.
Amazing. Okay. And that's kind of like the point that people can kind of find everything. If we link your Instagram, then they can go there and see where
Yeah.
everything is.
I've got a little link. I actually the other day went and like made one of the like link tree things that was like, here's all the many different ways you can contact me.
Perfect. You're all organized
Yeah.
for me to ask this question.
Yeah, so go to my Instagram page and then everything is there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it because you are a very, very busy lady. But yeah, I think this will have brought a lot of knowledge and advice to people listening. So thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me.